Daniel and the days to come. That's what we've been talking about. And if you have ever asked this question, can the Bible really tell us of future events and tell us of things that have not yet been? Well, you'll want to stay tuned because we're going to jump into that right now. I'm Pastor Greg Tipton. Thank you so much for joining us for New Life Today. And we've been looking at Daniel chapter 2, where Daniel interprets a dream for King Nebuchadnezzar. And if you joined us on our last segment, we looked at the description of that statue, the makeup of it, and now we're going to get a little deeper into what that statue represents, the empires it represents. One of the things that is interesting, and I'll share this with you that will kind of help us understand how the Bible points towards the future, is that there are actually a total of 8 world empires that will exist before the coming of Christ and before the establishment of the kingdom that will see no end. Daniel deals with 5 of them. We see that in the statue. There's 5 sections of that one statue, which is a succession of world empires. And so Daniel deals with 5 of them. The reason why is because 2 had been, and there was still yet to be 3 that would come to pass. And so Daniel deals with these 5. But let me give you the 8 real quick so that you understand. And also, this is a little tidbit of information that might be helpful and might be useful. God had made a promise to Abraham. He said to him, in blessing, I'll bless you. And he said, whoever blesses you, I will bless them. And whoever curses you, I will curse them. And of course, he was talking about Abraham and his seed. And that would be the Jews. That would be the Israelites. That whoever reached out to do them harm, or whoever reached out to do them good, whichever one, God would repay them. And God said that what you do to Israel, that is what I'll do to you. So let me give you a rundown of the kings or the empires that we know of, and let's see what happened to them real quick. Of course, the first one is Egypt. It's the first world empire that dominated Israel, and the first world empire that ruled over them. After Joseph, the scripture says there arose a Pharaoh who did not know Joseph or the things that he did for the Egyptians. And so the Egyptians, because they were worried that the Israelites were growing and becoming prosperous and they were becoming powerful, they said, lest they join our enemies and battle us and defeat us, let us subjugate them. So they subjugated them to slavery. They subjugated them to poverty, to lack, to everything that you can think of. For a little over 400 years, they were subjugated to this. And when the Israelites left Egypt, the scripture says that they spoiled their neighbors. In other words, they bankrupted the most powerful nation up to that time that had ruled. And they walked out with all of their wealth, and what they had done to Egypt, God had done to them. Until this day, Egypt still has a high poverty rate. The next kingdom to subjugate them was Assyria. Assyria had come against the northern kingdom and had decimated those 10 tribes and basically wiped them off of the map. And so what happened to Assyria? Well, there is no trace of them anywhere other than what the scripture gives and just a few little relics that have been found. And so when they tried to annihilate Israel, well, God said, what you do to Israel, that's what I'm going to do to you. Then Babylon came against Jerusalem. What happened? They decimated Jerusalem. They destroyed the temple. They took them captive, they subjugated them, and they basically wiped the city off the map. What happened to Babylon? God wiped Babylon off the map. In fact, we find something very interesting, and I don't really want to get ahead of myself, but I think it's important that we read this out of the book of Isaiah, the 13th chapter, where we get kind of an understanding of what happened to Babylon. In Babylon, in the 13th chapter of the book of Isaiah, we have a prophecy about Babylon, and he gives that. Now, because Babylon was so cruel to the children of Israel, the scripture says concerning Babylon, he says that the pains of anguish will take hold of them. They will writhe like a woman in labor. They will look at one another in astonishment, their faces aflame. Behold, the day of the Lord is coming, cruel with fury and burning anger, to make the land a desolation, and he will exterminate its sinners from it. He said, for the stars of heaven and their constellations will not flash forth the light. The sun will be dark when it rises. The moon will not shed its light. Thus I will punish the world for its evil and the wicked for their iniquity. I will also put an end to the arrogance of the proud and abase the haughtiness of the ruthless. And he goes on to give a description, and he talks about how Babylon will be taken over by the Medes, that their land will never be inhabited or lived in from generation to generation. It says, nor will the Arab pitch his tent there, nor will shepherds make their flocks lie down there, but desert creatures will lie down there, and their houses will be full of owls. Ostriches also will live there, shaggy goats with frolic there. Hyenas will howl in their fortified towers, and jackals in their luxurious palaces. Her fateful time also will soon come, and her days will not be prolonged. So what Babylon did to Jerusalem is the same thing God did to Babylon. And to this day, there is no one living in that region. It is a desolate place. Listen, when God makes a promise, God's got a very long memory. You then have the Medo-Persian Empire. Well, what happened there? Medo-Persia takes over, and King Cyrus makes a decree to allow people to go back to Jerusalem, rebuild the city, and to allow a remnant there to preserve Israel. So what does God do with them? God gives them a little remnant. It's called Persia. We know it today as modern-day Iran. It is still there because of the favor through King Cyrus that was shown to Israel. God showed favor and gave them a remnant and a piece of land, and they last till this day. Then Greece comes along. Well, when Greece comes along, what they do is they say, let's subject them to our religion, to our way of thinking, to our mindset. And so they engulf them into the culture. What happened? Well, God used that to influence Greece, and one of the most evangelized kingdoms and one of the most evangelized empires that embraced Christianity was that of the Greek culture. So when they thought we'll change their thinking, well, there was a transformed mind that hit Greece. Rome is a place that took them and said, here's what we'll do. We will disperse them throughout the land, throughout the world that we own, that we have conquered, and we will put them out. And what happens to Rome? Well, when Rome fell, of course, naturally, they got spread throughout the earth, and there is not a major continent in the earth that does not have Latin in their language. So what God does, what you do to Israel, God does to you, and that is his promise. And so these empires have come. So now you've got these five that Daniel deals with. So let's take a look. He gave the description of the statue. Verse 36 of Daniel 2, he says, this was the dream. He said, now we will tell its interpretation before the king. So Daniel's confident that God's going to give me the interpretation. He says, you, O king, are the King of kings, to whom the God of heaven has given the kingdom, the power, the strength, and the glory. And he says, and wherever the sons of men dwell, or the beasts of the field, or the birds of the sky. He has given them into your hand and has caused you to rule over them. He said, you, O king, are this head of gold. So Daniel is telling King Nebuchadnezzar, listen, your kingdom is the first one represented. The beauty, the majesty, the prestige. In fact, we would find in Daniel chapter 4 that King Nebuchadnezzar was in his palace one day admiring everything that he had built and constructed, and he has another dream. That is a dream of an angelic host coming down from heaven and saying with a loud voice, chop down that tree. Daniel once again interprets that dream and says, "O king, you're the tree, and there is an angelic being, and you're going to spend some time being reminded that God is the God of heaven and God is the God of earth." And so that came to pass, and for 7 years he ate the grass like a wild beast. His hair grew as the feathers of an eagle, his claws as the talons of an eagle, and he was there, and after 7 years his right mind was restored. He gave glory to the God of heaven, and God restored him on his throne. But he said, "You, O king, are the king, or this head of gold." He then in verse 39 says, "And after you there will arise another kingdom inferior to you." Again, remember, the last segment, we talked about how those metals decreased in value. And he says, it's going to be an inferior kingdom to you. It's going to be inferior in several ways. And he said, then another kingdom of bronze, which will rule over all the earth. That's the Grecian Empire. Again, the descent in the metals. And so now Daniel is telling him, I'm not just telling you what's going to happen in this time, but I'm also going to tell you what's happening in the time to come. And so now we have those arms and chests of silver, which is the Medo-Persian Empire. The Medo-Persian was a connection of two kingdoms that came together. That's the reason why you see the picture of them as two arms and the chest, or as the bear raised up on one side with meat in his mouth, or you see him as the shaggy goat with the two horns, one horn larger than the other. The reason why is because you had one kingdom that was stronger than the other kingdom, but they had joined forces and they became a formidable foe. And so Daniel says, these are the things that are going to happen. Eventually, God is going to take your kingdom down, but there will be one that will rise in its place, and then another after that. And then in verse 40, he gives a description of Rome. Now, Rome would not come about for quite some time. He is here prophesying in sometime 536, somewhere around there. Rome would not come to power until about 30 AD. So you're talking about 400 years, 500 years before you see Rome. He says, then there will be a fourth kingdom as strong as iron. Well, we know that Rome was. It conquered everything it went after. Inasmuch as iron crushes and shatters all things, so like iron that breaks in pieces, it will crush and break all these in pieces, talking about the kingdoms that are before it. And that you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron. It will be a divided kingdom, but it will have in it the toughness of iron, inasmuch as you saw the iron mixed with common clay. Let me stop right here. You have the two legs, which are the western and eastern division of Rome. Remember Constantinople and Rome, Italy. You had the separation there of the eastern and the western division. And so that's what the two legs represent. And yet both of them were of iron. But then there's going to come a kingdom, which is going to be a fifth world empire that will come about. And that is going to be the beast that will rise up out of the sea. It'll be a government of 10 kings and 10 kingdom nations that will come together in the last days before the coming of Christ. And these are represented as the toes of the feet that were partly of iron and partly of pottery. So some of the kingdom will be strong and part of it will be brittle. He says in verse 43, and this helps us get a picture, And in that you saw the iron mixed with common clay. They will combine with one another in the seed of men. That terminology right there is important because that is what we're seeing today. I want you to think about it for just a moment. Go back to the Arab Spring, when the Arab Spring took place and you had the uprising. These were countries that what they begin to do is the nations begin to rave, and they begin to become disjointed, and they become disgruntled. And so now you had these autocracies that begin to placate to the seed of men, or to people that had a democratic mindset. And so now you've got autocratic leaders that are coming into league with the seed of men, or these democratic mindsets, and saying, let's form these kingdoms and put these things together. And it says it had, you saw the iron mixed with common clay. They will combine with one another in the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, even as iron does not combine with pottery. So what you're dealing with is you're dealing with a kingdom that will come together long enough in order to establish its autocratic leadership. And eventually, the power and strength of that iron, which is dictatorship, will crush the seed of men. And you will once again have a dominant ruler, and he will come up in what is known as the eighth empire, and that is the Antichrist's kingdom. And my goodness, the time flies when we are having fun. We're out of time again. But listen, you don't want to go too far, because there's going to be another video coming up dealing with some more of the days of Daniel, or Daniel, the days in the future. So you don't want to miss that. Please make sure that you subscribe to our channel. Give us a thumbs up. Ring that little bell. Let us be able to alert you when we come on with new content. I pray you've been blessed. Until I see you next time, I pray God bless you.